I was looking through this last night, and the night before that, and the night before that, and I've been avoiding this one for a long time. I realized last night how long I would have been avoiding this sermon. I first gave it 25 years ago. And I checked that again with a calculator because it hadn't been that long in my mind. Perhaps somebody will remember it. Tomorrow, all over the country, men will wake up, look around, and want to find a place to hide. If only to escape the whoopee cushions, baseball caps with floppy ears, or mouse ears, $2 cologne that truly smells like it. And not from the dollar store. That's the bad part. It wasn't even from the dollar store. Ties in the most awful patterns known to man. Or beast. And breakfasts, barbecue lunches, and dinners served in their honor because it's Father's Day. On the other hand, other men will look at them and continue on with their lives and never truly realize what they're missing by continuing to play the field with so little time on the clock. And we don't realize how little time we really have. I looked up, and first time I gave this was 25 years ago. Where did all that time go? And still others, because they weren't blessed with that duty, and it is a blessing. It doesn't feel like it at the time, but after your children grow up and become whatever they are, then you realize what a blessing it is. And still others, because they weren't blessed with that duty or were negligent in their execution of that duty when it was given to them, just don't see what all this joyousness is all about. And in another realm farther away, another father will look around and get little of the credit he has deserved from the beginning of time until now. And he doesn't really expect it, because many don't even believe that he exists. And Elohim realizes this, but he also realizes that at a point in the future, we will all see the clouds break, the sky turn dark. We didn't realize that. I even had this in a sermon 25 years ago. And some people still don't realize that the world will be dark when he returns. The only light we will see is all the light from that sea of glass. A trumpet's sound will sound, and the doubts will be erased to the question we've asked in derision. More and more these days with derision anyway, especially from our colleges and halls of higher learning. What question? You know what it is. Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? As I said, the last time I did this sermon was about 29 years ago. Date was 6/19/93, to be exact. I didn't want to do it then because I felt that I didn't have any children, so I didn't have any experience to base the sermon on. For that matter, Sandy and I had lost a child a few months before this, and I didn't want to deal with the concept of children or fatherhood at all back then. But it was put on my heart to do this, and when something comes from above, you just do it. And some of the reasons why I did it didn't come clear to me until I did it again. And that doing is what I'm doing now. I found those notes and am rather glad I did, as they prove that experience is a good teacher. But the Holy Spirit is a better one. We have had a good laugh at the gifts that the mothers and kids will give the fathers. But the real question is and will always be, what will we fathers give to our children? What kind of fathers will we be? I've got 3 examples and a few scriptures and want to give some backing to them. I also want to compare our roles to the qualities of Elohim, the Father, as illustrated in the Bible. And this is the example that I think of when I use it as a prototype. What are the qualities of a good father? He is led by Elohim and lives his life in a righteous, spiritual manner. And I use that word spiritual with caution. Test the spirits before you use them. He is courteous and honorable to his wife, diligent in his work, and exhibits this example for his children daily. Now, obviously, not every man aspires or expects to be a minister. I didn't either at the beginning. Or a bishop or a deacon. But the outline put forth in 1 Timothy for these men is a good outline for fathers as well. Turn to 1 Timothy, the 3rd chapter, the 1st verse. 1 Timothy, the 3rd chapter, the 1st verse. The saying is sure, if anyone aspires to the office of bishop, he desires a noble task. Now, a bishop must be above reproach, the husband of one wife. What? Half the ministry was just erased by one sentence. And now, a bishop must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, temperate, sensible, dignified, hospitable, an apt or knowledgeable teacher. No drunkard. There went the other half. Not violent. A few more. But gentle, not quarrelsome, and no lover of money. That's just about everybody there. And in seriousness, that might be part of our problem. The kind of men that we have had in front of us all these years. I'm not going to name any names, and I am going to put mine in there. Verse 4, he must manage his own household well, keeping his children submissive and respectful in every way. For if a man does not know how to manage his own household, how can he care for Elohim's church? Moreover, he must be well thought of by outsiders, or he may fall into reproach and the snare of the devil. I was just talking about that to somebody this morning. Verse 8, deacons likewise must be serious, not double-tongued. Every sentence, I think of people that display these qualities. And I put myself in there because at times I have displayed them also. Deacons likewise must be serious, not double-tongued, not addicted to much wine, not greedy for gain. Turn to Proverbs, the 22nd chapter, the 6th verse. Proverbs, the 22nd verse, the 22nd chapter, the 6th verse. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. This is important. We have to bring our children to church and teach them what is in the Bible. Now, obviously, as they get older, they will develop their own concepts about what this book says. But if our actions are consistent with our words, this will be an anchor for our children when they get older. They will see that their parents have very normal lives that are lived daily in the ways taught in this Bible. The more we look for wiggle room concerning what it says, the more we teach our kids to dance around Elohim's word. And we know that kids are always better dancers than we are, coming up with moves that we never thought of. Number 2, about earthly fathers. He is an overgrown kid. Keep in mind that I was only 29 when I wrote this. He has never outgrown playing and just being silly. That was a long time ago. He roughhouses, he tickles, he quacks like a duck for no apparent reason. This dad truly enjoys kid games and fun. And I did at one time. I still do occasionally. And his kids love him for it. I think at one point I had as many computer games as Rashida does. She's growing out of hers right now, slowly. Because we need to have a healthy diversion occasionally, especially in these terrible times we live in now, where we trust no one. Can't trust the press, can't trust the government, the politicians that reside in it, or anyone else. We need healthy diversions every once in a while. I think the worst thing we can do as adults is forget what it was like to be a kid. We accept larger responsibilities as adults and begin to feel that we must also have adult forms of entertainment as well. And most of these adult forms of entertainment are simply the things we wanted to do as adolescents. But were stopped by our parents because they knew that these were the base things in life, and eventually led to worse things or addictions or habits that demean and distort our parental role. I won't go into details, but we all can think of one or two. Drinking to excess, and I won't go any further. And everybody has a few. It's fine to have childlike fun, but you have to temper it with discipline and level-headedness, or the child will feel that he is your equal in the household. This never works when it comes time for discipline. As Solomon said in Ecclesiastes, 3rd chapter, the 1st verse. Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, the 1st verse. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and more importantly, a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time, as I said, to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. And anybody that knows anything about me, that time is very short with me. If it exists at all. That's something I just never caught on to as a child even. And I just looked at it as something silly to do. And that's just me. It's not biblical in any way, shape, or form, any of that. Just that's me. Dance all you want to. Not right now. Just, you know. When it comes time for discipline, the child will think you are playing as well. You have to let them know that you are serious and do not waver in your teaching or discipline. In context, turn to Malachi, the 3rd chapter, the 6th verse. For I, Yahweh, do not change. Therefore, you, O sons of Jacob, are not consumed. Third quality of a father. He is a man of his word. He says what he means, and he means what he says. This dad teaches his children to be truthful at all times and to keep the promises they have made, to have integrity, to understand that commitment and loyalty are not just words. They are a way of life. Be careful of what we say as fathers. Once the words come from your mouth, they are your words. They are all that anyone can trust from you. Elohim can be trusted. Let us make sure that we can be trusted as well. At home and in our everyday lives, over the years, with the increase in criminality among teenagers and college-age young adults, it has been proven that a teen or a person that was raised in a home, taught by parents in a home, the things that led to that crime pattern in some way or form. In most cases, not all, some kids come up with stuff on their own that was never taught in their houses. That's rare, but it is something that happens every once in a while. Fathers verbally taught diligence, honesty, And backhandedly, this goes for mothers as well, because they have more hands-on with the children. Fathers and mothers verbally taught diligence, honesty, respect, and integrity. But as the kids worked their way through the criminal justice system and were interviewed by police and social workers for their thefts, cons, rapes, and other crimes, it was learned by the questioning process that it was learned from these same fathers' actions, and to a lesser degree or more because of the housing structure now, the actions of mothers as well. Kids don't miss anything. Actions in phone conversations, business dealings, and extramarital affairs. These things were overheard by their children in their phone conversations. The kid doesn't tell you that he's listening to your phone conversations. You just have to know that yourself. Things that were overheard and seen by their children, and these qualities were the ones that were most strongly imitated by their children. And they didn't know the kids even knew about it, but the kids knew just as much as they did. What kind of person you are, it goes on as long as you're awake. And at any time, your children are imbibing this in some form, whether they tell you they are or not. Be yourself, whatever that is, 24/7, 365. Luke, the 12th chapter, the first verse. Luke, the 12th chapter, the first verse. In the meantime, when so many thousands of the multitude had gathered together that they trod upon one another, he began to say to his disciples, "Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. Nothing is covered up that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be known. Therefore, whatever you have said in the dark shall be heard in the light. And what you have whispered in private rooms shall be proclaimed upon the housetops, or in the sitting rooms of jails where your kids took that example instead of the one you provided in church." Back in biblical times, the rooftop was the place where the family gathered to pray. It was also the place where announcements to a neighborhood were often made from the rooftops in order for all to see and hear. Warnings of danger, announcements of importance for the community. In the modern setup, I guess this would be our children's acting on the hypocrisy learned from us and having their illicit actions being broadcast for all to see on local and sometimes national television, to our shame. It has been frightening to me how short-sighted and partisan we men can be at times. And I realize that a lot of kids over the years are also raised in separate homes because of divorce and other reasons, but I realize that a lot of the home training that used to happen in one home isn't that way anymore. I also realize that since that stigma has been lifted by society and many women have the choice, although in most cases the choices for them have been made by men of low character and high testosterone. I say it the politest way possible. To raise your children alone now is not so big a thing by the society. God, as he said, hasn't changed. I am now convinced completely that in most cases, this is not a good thing. Years ago, when we first came out here to Homewood, I had taken a lot of time over the years to do things with Rashida and pal around with her friends somewhat. Don't go too deep there as a man in this age or that age. But with the real eye-opener to me, I had spent a lot of time in arcades and parks, and now I understand why so many children have disappeared in parks and arcades. They only get to the news when they are spectacular killings. But children are kidnapped every day. Every day. I used to go to the arcade with Rashida, and all of a sudden, once you give to one, that's how completely visual children are. They'll see you give to one child, and they all start coming to you. When they ran out of quarters for the arcade games. These children were left at the arcade for hours by themselves. The parents went out and did errands and whatever else they did. I don't know. I don't dig too deep in that area. And he knows. That's the important part. They left them for hours in these arcades alone. And they gave them so much money, if they ran out, they came up and begged for change. Now for me, that's no big thing. A yes or no question at best. For a pedophile though, It is what is known in law enforcement as an opportunity. In those days, a few years back, if I were a pedophile, I'd have had at least, I don't know how many opportunities, 25, 5. Many children came up to me borrowing, and they said borrowing, but once you hand it out, you don't expect to get it back. And I prepared for that eventuality when I filled my pockets with change when I came up there. Well, not change so much as tokens. If you know any parents, please remind them to warn the children in your or their charge that it is dangerous to beg from total strangers. They say it, they don't see it as the kid sees it. They see it as the law enforcement officials see it, as an opportunity, especially in this evil time. Let us teach our children how to live and how to survive when it is appropriate. To understand that there are men, and increasingly now women, who take advantage of children and young teenagers. And let's not forget that there are laws of age in place to protect your children, but those laws are nothing like you doing it for yourself. There's not always a policeman around. That's why you don't leave your children at an arcade and do other things, whatever those other things are. I saw it all over the place out here. But our children do grow up, and occasionally they do get caught up. And we have to sit and pray that what we have taught over the years will bear fruit. And even then, sometimes it just doesn't work out according to the example we have set for our children. But at least we know that the kids have it in their minds if we teach the same thing as we speak. Luke, the 15th chapter, the 11th verse. Luke, the 15th chapter, the 11th verse. And he said, there was a man who had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of property that falls to me. And he divided his living between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took his journey into a far country. And he squandered his property in loose living. I like how the biblical writers were so vague in details of details of the young man's life, but used such expressive language in allowing us to visualize the things that we have done in our lives in order to understand what may have gone on. The more you've done, the more you can imagine. Verse 14, and when he had spent everything, a great famine arose in that country, and he began to be in want. and he went and joined himself to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed swine. If you know anything about swine, they will eat just about anything. Really, they will eat anything. It's edible. And sometimes they try and crack teeth even then. Verse 16, and he would gladly have fed on the pods that the swine ate. Surely, though, corn pods weren't the worst thing before him at any time. And the Bible isn't in the habit of making us puke at every turn, but that was the middle ground. Corn pods. And he would gladly have fed on the corn pods that the swine ate. And no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare? But I perish here with hunger. I will rise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. You see, this is what we live for. This is why we continue to live and love as followers and emulators of Elohim. To give a strong example that the child knows Elohim's place in our lives, respects and recognizes our place in his, and hopes that our response will be framed in the image of the one who we have learned this example from. Verse 19, I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But while he was yet at a distance, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. He hadn't even had shoes on anymore. You gotta get in the details, but the details tell the story, the real story. Shoes on his feet. And bring the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and make merry. For this my son was dead. And a lot of people don't understand that. He was dead spiritually. And is alive again. He was lost spiritually. And is found. And they began to make merry. Now his elder son was in the field, and as he came out and drew near the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of his servants and asked him what this meant. And he said to him, "Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf, because he has received him safe and sound." But the oldest son was angry and refused to go in. His father came and entreated him, but he answered his father, "Lo, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a kid that I might make merry with my friends. But with this son of yours came, who has devoured your living with harlots. You killed for him the fatted calf." And he said to him, "Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to make merry and be glad, for their brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found." As they get older and go out on their own, we have to be reminded that what they do in the streets comes back on them. And no matter how much we want to shield them from it, sometimes we have to hold that shield at home and wait for them to come back and accept its shelter. But they won't come back if we have a sword sticking out in front of the shield. But if we raise them properly and discipline them even-handedly, they will come back when they get in over their heads. And hopefully, prayerfully, they won't bring back anything that jeopardizes the whole family. I've seen that too. And I won't go into any details. I've seen that too. Everything your child does, you have to watch it. Sometimes they don't talk. They do other things to tell you what's going on in their heads. This is why we must give them all the information possible in truth when they get interested in something. "Because I said so" doesn't work anymore. I remember years ago when I asked my father for a guitar. He said, "No." And I said, "Why not?" "Because I said so." And after a few years in that business, I wish I had taken that answer. And that's all I can say about that. But "because I said so" should be enough. But for the flint-headed ones, we know that is not so. It is then that we have to let them know what the repercussions are without holding back the details. Even then, some will do it anyway. But at that point, it's not your fault. but be ready to help when they step over that line, just as the father of the prodigal son did, and as the Father of us all has done. Psalms, the 106th chapter, the first verse. Praise Yahweh. Oh, give thanks to Yahweh, for he is good. For his steadfast love endures forever. Who can utter the mighty doings of Yahweh or show forth all his praise? Blessed are they who observe justice, who do righteousness at all times. Remember me, O Yahweh, when you show favor to your people. Help me when you deliver them, that I may see the prosperity of your chosen ones, that I may rejoice in the gladness of your nation, that I may glory with your heritage. Both we and our fathers have sinned. We have committed iniquity. We have done wickedly. Our fathers, when they were in Egypt, did not consider your wonderful works. They did not remember the abundance of your steadfast love, but rebelled against the Most High at the Red Sea. The one time when they should have been on their knees begging him for what he was going to do anyway. Yet he saved them for his name's sake, that he might make known his mighty power. Verse 9, he rebuked the Red Sea, and it became dry. And he led them through the deep as through a desert. He led them through the deep as through a desert. Let's it sink in for a minute. Verse 10, so he saved them from the hand of the foe and delivered them from the power of the enemy, and the waters covered their adversaries. Not one of them was left. He was showing them something then. They didn't get it until it was too late. Verse 12. Then they believed his words. They sang his praise, but they soon forgot his works. But they did not wait for his counsel. But they had a wanton craving in the wilderness, and put Elohim to the test in the desert. He gave them what they asked, but sent a wasting disease among them. When men in the camp were jealous of Moses and Aaron, the holy ones of Yahweh, the earth opened and swallowed up Dathan and covered the company of Abiram. Fire also broke out in their company. The flame burned up the wicked. They made a calf in praise of, they said it was Yahweh, but we knew better. They knew it was a sin, what they did. And they jumped up as if they had done nothing. Oh, give thanks to Yahweh, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. Who can utter the mighty doings of Yahweh, or show forth all his praise? Horeb and worshipped a molten image. Horeb and worshipped a molten image of Horeb. They exchanged the glory of Elohim. Verse 20. They exchanged the glory of Elohim for the image of an ox that eats grass. They forgot Elohim, their Savior, who had done great things in Egypt, wondrous things in the land of Ham, and terrible things by the Red Sea. Therefore he said he would destroy them, but not Moses, his chosen one, stood in the breach before him to turn away his wrath from destroying them. That's a father, in a way. 24. Then they despised the pleasant land, having no faith in his promise. They murmured in their tents and did not obey the voice of Yahweh Elohim. Therefore he raised his hand and swore to them that he would make them fall in the wilderness and would disperse their descendants among the nations, scattering them over the lands. 28. Then they attached themselves to Baal of Peor. They never stopped, and ate sacrifices offered to the dead. They provoked Yahweh to anger with their doings, and a plague broke out among them. Then Phinehas stood up and interposed, and the plague was stayed. And that has been reckoned to him as righteousness, from generation to generation forever. They angered him at the waters of Meribah, and it went ill with Moses on their account, for they made his spirit bitter, and he spoke words that were rash. They did not destroy the people as Yahweh commanded them, but they mingled with the nations and learned to do as they did. They served their idols, which became a snare to them. They sacrificed their sons and their daughters to the demons. They poured out innocent blood, the blood of their sons and daughters, whom they sacrificed to the idols of Canaan. And the land was polluted with blood. Thus they became unclean by their acts and played the harlot in their doings, spiritual harlotry. Then the anger of Yahweh was kindled against his people, and he abhorred his heritage. He gave them into the hand of the nations, so that they who hated them ruled over them. Their enemies oppressed them, and they were brought into subjection under their power. How many times he delivered them, but they were rebellious in their purposes, and were brought low through their iniquity. Nevertheless, he regarded their distress when he heard their cry. He remembered for their sake his covenant and relented according to the abundance of his steadfast love. He caused them to be pitied by all those who held them captive. Save us, Yahweh our Elohim, and gather us from among the nations, that we may give thanks to your holy name and glory in your praise. Blessed be Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, for everlasting to everlasting. And let all the people say, let us go and honor our human physical fathers, those who have them still in their lives. But let us never forget to praise and honor the Father above. Every day, and live according to his ways, that he may forgive us and welcome us all back home when his day truly comes. Any questions? Dwayne?
I want to sing the prodigal son. It's not the hymn. When I was growing up, my father taught me many lessons, and he was hard on me. He would go out, and if he took his pocket knife out when I'd been misbehaving, I knew what was going to happen. And he wasn't going to cut me. He was going to cut a switch out of the lilac bush and strip it off its leaves, and he's going to come in and lay it across the back of my thighs. And of course, you could go to jail for doing that today.
Yep.
But he taught me many lessons like that when I couldn't sit down. But what he wanted, without ever saying it, was honor. That's what he taught me.
Yep.
Took me years to figure that out.
Yep. Same here. Same here. If I had listened to my dad, all those years wasted in the music industry and all of the other stuff that I went through chasing that dream or whatever it was, would have never occurred, would have gotten here a lot faster. Develop.
You know, this story is very touching because I said, is it on?
Yeah.
I said this is very touching because you talk and you tell them. And I said, I'm giving you an example. I'm telling you not to go over there. It's a hole over there. You're going to fall in it. I can handle it. I can handle it. I got this. And then when they fall in the hole, help me. Come help me get out of this hole. You know, I know where the hole is because I fell in that hole. I'm trying to help you. But well, I'm going to say my kids. One or two of my kids didn't want to believe it because you never did anything. You don't know nothing, but I got this, you know, but then they want to, and it hurts. It hurts when you see them, when you see them done fell down and you told them, don't do that. Don't dwell in that. It hurts, but they had to do it themselves. When you said you gotta let them go, like you said, give me my money, let me go out in the world. It hurts, but that's all you can do. It wasn't no mean. It ain't like I didn't tell you, but it does hurt. It does hurt. It still hurts. But when it's out, Mama, you was right. You know I shouldn't have did this and that. And that.
Thanks, Brother Dwayne. I had a thought when we were reading through the prodigal son, and that is that we should not be like his brother. who could not, when they told him what was going on with the feasting and everything, he couldn't be happy for his brother. He was just so angry and everything. And I know they say if we abide in Messiah and we endure to the end, that, one day we'll be resurrected, we'll be spirit, we will jointly, with Messiah inherit all things in eternal life. So that, we're going to get our full due. But as we see our brethren being reconciled back to the Father, coming again to Him, we should be happy for them.
Yes.
Because of the principle in Luke 15, 7 and 10. There's more rejoicing in heaven over, one sinner that repents and turns around than over 99 that don't need it, at that time. There's more rejoicing. So we got to also be happy for our brethren that are, coming back around and, coming back to the fold, and not be like that older brother who didn't need to have that attitude.
It doesn't have to be your kids, it can be anyone that you see. Come back and ask you to help you.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing is regret.
Mm-hmm.
The word regret is so painful. Because you can't take nothing that you've done or said. And I think it's something that we should be focused. As my dad gets older and he's hurting and he's dealing with the life that's done. I don't think I really even got really disciplined by my dad. I really never really had nothing to do that I would disappoint him. But I seen the negligence my brothers had for my dad. And I think when my brother Neff was so much into drinking, we were all young adults already. And he wanted to do his thing so bad that he didn't care. He wouldn't pay no light bills, no rent, no nothing. One time, my dad got upset with my mom because my mom would cover up a lot for him. And I remember my brother wanted to pick a fight with my dad in the dining room. And he got the chair and slammed it against the wall. And got up, he's trying to chase my dad to beat him. We all watched. I watched my brothers be very cruel and rough with my dad. And sometimes I think what my brother Neff at his last moments, if he repented of his doings, we all go through stuff in life. But it's not justified when we do things that we ought not to do, because it comes back fold. I think of all the things that I try to do good so I won't hurt my parents. I think the only time I hurt him is when I couldn't stand the beatings of my mom. I was 24 and a half that I left. And that was like the biggest sin I could have committed. And it hurt my dad. And I didn't realize how bad I hurt him. I wanted to hurt my mom. But I didn't realize how bad I hurt my dad. Because he says, "You're my first baby girl." And he says, I should have did something. I should have stood up for you. And I didn't. Because a lot of the times I didn't know what was going on. But yes, regret is the worst thing we can do. And we learn that as we get older. We learn as we have children of our own.
Yep.
We learn when our children fall. And we hurt so bad, we wish we could take that pain from them. But they have to endure it themselves in order for them to understand. Like Brother Dwayne says, the meaning. You understand it afterwards. And we can't take that off from our, it's like it's stickiness, reminding us, remember. Now it's our turn to try and be strong for them and teach them with love. You know, my brother can't come back and say, Dad, I'm sorry for what I did. But it is what it is. We learn from our own examples. We choose what we want. Thank you. Here, David.
In
Dwayne.
the Oriental world, they make it very plain. You will not dishonor this family,
Yes.
Yes.
period. But
Yep.
kid understood.
Yep. In some parts, I don't know how it is now, but in China, at some points in history, if a child shamed a family, that family could kill that child. Even in the Bible itself, there's a point in Exodus where if a child did certain things to the parents or said certain things about the parents, they would stone them. The whole community would come together and stone the child to death. I'm not advocating for that, but that's what they did.
Donald Trump's got a daughter like that. She went to a liberal college where he should not have gone. He should have known better. And she came out a blooming liberal. Now, she dishonored him. She's gone against him. Even in this silly hearing that they had, she dishonored him. I hope she realizes that she will be named in a will somewhere down the line for a nickel.
Or not named in it. But we all have had long lives for a reason. And anybody that dies young, in most cases, they got something out of this. And they're in a place where when he comes back to raise them up, they will go on from that point into the kingdom because they will know who is in front of them and what their chances are of fooling him. And they will either do two things: bow down and kneel, and only that, not only that, pray and learn his 10 commandments and anything else who says explicitly, and go on from there. And my sister died last year, 57 years old. She made it one year longer than my mom. Mom was 58. And so many others I think of when nothing will get me through this, in front of this, for me. This word is like a shield. Everything I do, I try to do by this book, and I want to get to see them all again. And many don't think that way anymore because so many other things are out here. I've even heard young people here say that all the stuff they're coming out with, they're going to catch up with God at some point. No. He invented all of that stuff that you're reusing now, that you getting out of those books about these ancient societies underground and all of that. And he invented it all the first time, and he's got it already. We're not ready for it. this is the part of this whole thing that even the churches have not, well, I understand why they didn't do it. Their thing is what's in the book. Anything outside of that, they don't want to know too much about it because it pollutes what's here. But a lot of the world to come is going to be a lot more modern than we think it is. And that's all I can say about that. Anyone on the phone line? Anyone else?
I know a young lady that was raised in the church
Mm-hmm.
because she would no longer honor the Sabbath,
Mm-hmm.
or her mother's observation of the Sabbath was dismissed from the household. She is now the prodigal daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Did she come back? Did she come back? I don't know. Haven't heard.
Thurman?
And also you have to remember forgiveness 70 times 7, because
Yep.
the prodigal son or daughter may come back and they may go out again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the parable in the Bible, I guess he went out one time and came back, but it won't necessarily always be that way. They can, backslide again. It's possible.
Yep. Any more? Let's eat.